All right, let's go, Mr. Michael Keithley
Do it.
here on Sand Hill Road. Welcome to Menlo Park, man.
Thank you.
All the way from Beverly Hills to the rich and powerful, acclaimed BC land.
I got Rodeo Drive down there and Sand Hill Road up here.
I know, right? Well, we're actually technically in Menlo right now, so everyone, if you're looking around, won't get it. But yeah, welcome. Thanks so much for coming by the way.
Thank you. My pleasure.
Yeah, you're visiting. Although, I don't know if everyone knows this, but the last time we met was also sort of in the car, actually.
It was.
I think I was late, or you were late. No, I was late. I was late to meet you in SF. And I'm like, you know what? Let's just have this first meeting in the car on the way to the airport.
Right. You took me to the airport.
Although I'm like really typical of me. You know, when I was like I say a kid, but you know, back when I was in Symantec, I had landed and the CEO was sitting behind me. And I'm like, we're going to the same place anyways, so do you want to just give me a ride?
How'd that go over?
I don't think he likes me very much, but I thought it was smart. But you know, it was a good learning experience, right? I mean, you got to be ruthless, right? If you want to understand and learn or grow or whatever it is, you have to do these things.
100%, especially if you're a founder of a startup, right?
Times.
You gotta figure stuff out all the time.
It's different, right? It's definitely different. Like I always tell myself, I'm like, I don't know why everyone thinks that like going into a startup is like the best thing in the world. It's definitely not for everyone.
Well, I think people hear the glamorous side of it, you know, when you hear about the successes, not all the failures, but anybody that's actually done it more than once will tell you how damn hard it is.
I definitely love the ability to meet new people because like you and I would have never met. I think we talked about this earlier, but like imagine when I used to build products, you have actually used a lot of the products I used to work on.
Right.
But that doesn't mean anything, right?
Zero chance I would have ever known who you were. Right?
Yeah, no chance. And me learning from someone like you or thinking about what do you think about the product, what makes you think it makes sense, that's actually what makes the biggest difference.
For sure.
Yeah. So what are you wearing today? Tell me about it.
I'm wearing the infamous dope security jacket, which is badass. I can't wait to get one myself.
Dude, it's only a matter of time. You know, we have to ship it all the way from Bombay, India to your home.
Is that the story? Is that how this is like hand painted in India?
Yeah, basically. So I have a lot of friends that work in weird, like different types of jobs. And one of them works in fashion and he builds and hand paints a lot of jackets like this. And when I was thinking about dope, actually we built a lot of the product in this place in India called, actually in Bombay called Soho House. So we'd have like everyone staying there and everything. And I met him, we became really good friends. And he's like, yo, Kunal, like if I ever can do anything, I'm like, that would be awesome. Let's make dope security jackets. And I'm always thankful to him, Bora, because he did such a great job with this stuff. And, you know, it's a big part of our brand identity now.
Well, you know, Kunal, if this whole dope security thing doesn't work out, you can move to Southern California and be a fashionista.
You know, I've heard that you have a couple of agents that could be looking for us.
A few, yeah. Maybe some clients that would be interested.
Which, by the way, I don't know if everyone really knows what you do at the UTA, which is also known as the United Talent Agency. And I will do the introduction because I don't know if everyone can understand that this is one of the biggest talent agencies in the entire world. So you can imagine the biggest actors, actresses, models, everything. Oh, gosh. Let's just stick that back up there, are actually all part of this industry. And it's pretty interesting because the people that are all part of this, they're actually just ridiculously good at everything. And for you, it's a unique position, right? Because you're doing cybersecurity for something very different.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very, very different.
And if you think about it, it's we're one of the big three, quote unquote, talent agencies that represent most of the names that people would know in any part of entertainment, sports, you name it, digital, online, etc.
And like you actually, which is one of the reasons why I was so excited to talk about this with you, is that you're not from the typical IT background, right? Even though you're technically the CIO, you're actually from a cybersecurity background.
Yeah, well, if you go far enough back in my kind of technology background, I worked for Northrop Grumman in the aerospace industry. And I was the head of what they called end-user computing which is basically glorified service desk,
Mm-hmm.
and started to see what now we call the cybersecurity industry, the importance of that. And it's something I really got interested in, and it's something that differentiated me and helped me become successful and early on in my career, which led to, where I am now.
But tell me, like, you were technically in the CISO area, and then you moved into CIO, right?
Correct.
But like, well, A, why? And B, how?
Well, luck, is the kind of how.
The stars aligned, but you walked through the door.
No, right place at right time, really. The formality of the titles weren't as much way back when.
Mm-hmm.
And I had this interest and desire, an area that I kept going into, cyber and security, or computer security is kind of the way we talked about it then. And I was leaving the aerospace industry because that had peaked. I wanted to stay in Southern California. Entertainment was the next big industry,
Mm-hmm.
obviously in Southern California, and ended up going into the talent agency world as a security, CISO is what we call it today. And then broadened, as the technology broadened and the use of technology broadened, I transitioned into the CISO role, CIO role, excuse me. And so I kind of had CIO/CTO/CISO. Then I ended up hiring a world-class CISO as we grew and the cyber world got more complex. And, and the reason I'm now in the CIO role is, and it depends on what the different companies, but in my company, the CISO reports to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so I handle everything from a technology and security perspective.
Damn. So like you actually moved from being an IC, going through and doing that all the way up the ranks into the next level, right?
Correct. I was fortunate, once again, timing and luck to be able to surf the wave of technology becoming, critical to business operations.
And so like, because that's like the culmination, or that's how things have kind of adapted and pulled in, where like the CISO merged into CIO kind of a thing, but you're kind of actually at the inflection point of that, because you're actually doing both. If you think about it, right? Like you have both IT and security underneath you.
Correct.
But do you think that that's going to happen with everyone?
No, I don't. And a lot of it depends on the maturity of the organization and the size of the organization.
Right.
I could easily make a case that there's a separation of duties, and a CISO ought to be both sort of reporting directly to the the CEO, or risk, if it's a very large or compliance, heavy organization. But in our world, it totally makes sense, and it's something that's a passion of mine. I love, and as we sit here on Sandhill Road, today I'm going to one of the biggest venture capital firms to understand about all the new security startups, because it's something that I'm just really passionate about. That's, in fact, one of the ways I found out about you and dope security back in the day.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is what makes things interesting, right? Because you're actually like pretty plugged in to all these different VC firms, right? Like you actually are, when I say plugged in, it's like you're actively chatting and meeting and talking to them pretty regularly, right?
Absolutely. And it's one of the things that, I kind of view as like my superpower is the intersection between Hollywood and Silicon Valley.
Right.
And having these relationships with the venture capital firms that are funding the future and the startups that are creating the future gives me that first look advantage. And so I can hopefully really understand what's coming and kind of peer around the corner,
Mm-hmm.
and then leverage that to advantage as a first mover advantage in my company to make great things happen.
Right, because you could actually see that, hey, there's something newer, better, faster way of doing something, rather than having to wait for it to become mainstream, then start to use it, right?
Yeah, many of my peers wait till Gartner decides to create a magic quadrant and talk about it and, understand about it years later, and I've already understood the good or the bad and implemented the good and stayed away from the bad years ago.
Well, there you go, right? I mean, it's like, it is a secret superpower though, right? Because I think not everyone gets this opportunity to get to use or leverage these people and seeing what's the latest and greatest. I mean, in a lot of senses, you actually started using abnormal security way, way, way long ago, right?
For sure. And I literally was
By the way, all the lights are on now.
One of these firms. Those are cool.
I completely forgot to turn them on at the beginning of this video.
I just love this.
I completely screwed up.
My Tesla is nothing like this compared to this one. This is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So it's a great example. One of the top tier VC firms here had an entrepreneur in residence who was thinking about this idea, and I was an advisor to them and helped them create a kind of brainstorm on what ultimately became abnormal security. And so all during many years, I helped them advise and kind of shape the product, and it was very successful for them. It was successful for me, and it's been one of the cornerstones, quite frankly, of our email security. And email, as you know, is where a significant portion of the kind of threats come in, or the phishing attempts happen. And that particular company targeted a real niche that we saw as something we needed, and we kind of co-helped develop it.
So typically when you come into a company like as an example, email security, I mean, it's a pretty established industry, but like what was the core problem that was like, yo, this probably needs fixing?
It's the, I always think about email as the gateway to the outside, and that's where the bad guys are going to come in.
Right.
And phishing got more and more sophisticated.
Cybertruck right there.
Oh, wow.
Wild.
That's cool. That's the first time I've seen it in the wild.
First time.
First Cybertruck sighting.
That one looks future. It looks like a warthog from Halo.
It totally looks bizarre. But anyway, so, I really felt like that was an area. We had all the traditional, Microsoft and Proofpoint, it's kind of the traditional anti-spam tools, but we had nothing that really targeted in a really effective way these advanced kind of phishing and spear phishing type attacks that we were seeing, and some of them were getting through. And we realized that the traditional ways of trying to find those weren't going to work. And this is the very emergence of what now we're calling AI, but natural language processing and natural language understanding, and trying to understand the intent of it and taking a different approach to sussing these things out. And that's why I felt that was something worth investing in.
But you still use like this in concert with other email security solutions, right?
We do, absolutely. I'm very much a kind of best of breed approach.
Right. But do you ever feel like those companies should have done what Abnormal is doing? Whether or not they could or not is a different story.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy in hindsight, right? But I think that, once again, timing is everything. And you've got, I think back to this many years ago, an entrepreneur that was seeing in the kind of the ecosystem that is this valley with Stanford and everything that's going on, the emergence of AI,
right?
And how that could really change things. And so his thesis was, hey, we could use this AI to take a different approach that would probably be significantly more effective at identifying and mitigating these threats.
And that made a huge impact, obviously, for you as an organization, right? Because you actually see things that are getting blocked that you would not have blocked or you would not have caught if that wasn't there.
And that get through the traditional, filters, if you will.
Filters, yeah. Right. I mean, that's like something that I find very interesting, because basically someone pinpoints a problem, right? Not just like looking at this from the perspective of, hey, something, this is a solution. It's more, there's a very specific problem that we're trying to fix. And by like really getting into the detail of that, it makes a huge difference.
Well, absolutely. And it's starting with, what's the problem I have to solve? And working backwards into that and identifying, hey, there's this emerging new technology, AI, that could help solve that problem. That's exciting. That's something I want to
Something new. Yeah, exactly. Like what, because I mean, you do look at this from the lens of, semi the lens of an investor. Obviously, ultimately, you're not a VC, but you do tend to look at these new companies. What sets them apart? What truly sets these people apart?
Well, I think, a kind of serial entrepreneur that has been through the war, so to say,
right,
is always a really good thing.
Basically, not me.
Well,
just kidding, but maybe.
But you have different things, which is really a product mindset, that really understanding it's something that's sorely missing, I think, in the cybersecurity world, which is, user centricity and what is the user experience and how is that going to be? And taking that and having a great design ethos is one of the things that first attracted me to you and your company, right? This is different. All the other products that were kind of in this area looked and acted like they were designed in the Kremlin in 1960, and you had a modern thing, and this is like crazy talk in a security space, right?
It's crazy.
And so,
how dare there be a good UX?
No,
Not possible.
Even today, it's still amazing how poor a lot of the UX and the design is in the security space. I think it's an area that really has to catch up.
It's really a big problem because the thing is that there's this dearth of cybersecurity talent in the world, right? And if there's not that much cybersecurity talent in the world, then you're basically stuck, right? You're stuck in between like really complex PhD level products where you need to understand this backwards and forwards, and then at the same time you have like these products that nobody's trying to make them better over 5 years, 10 years, 50 years. They're not getting any easier to use at all.
They're not, but a part of that is like a chicken and egg scenario.
Yeah.
Who are you selling to? And if your view is that I'm just selling to the CISO or the technical team, who cares if I don't have a great UI? They'll figure it out.
Right.
Whereas if you've got somebody that's really focused on the end users and that user experience, it's a different thing. And I think you will be forced, the cybersecurity world, the industry, will be forced to get much closer to consumer type experiences, just like so many other parts of the technology stack.
Exactly.
It's just people won't tolerate it anymore. Right?
I think like if I was thinking in the shoes of like Tony and your team, for example, by the way, shout out to Tony, the man.
Yeah, he's great.
He's great. But like he was able to get up and running with our product very quickly. And I think that's the way every single cybersecurity product should be, right? You shouldn't have to think, oh, I now need to learn a new tool. It's going to become super complicated. Why should you have to do any of that stuff? Instead, can just go in and pretty much use a product the same way that you'd use like a consumer application, like an Instagram or Facebook. Like you just get up and running. You don't have to think too hard, right?
I'm old enough to remember when there used to be manuals, and you'd have product manuals. And if you have to have a product manual that tell you how to use your product today, you're dead in the water.
Right.
Maybe a YouTube video.
Yeah,
maybe
max.
That's max. Okay.
Max.
But it really should be intuitive enough that you should be able to figure it out.
I think like if we can all achieve that world where you don't have to think so hard, and you could just do your day job is not about figuring out how to use someone's product. Seriously, that's just should never be the case.
No, and it's also delightful looking at your screens. They're beautiful.
Yeah.
Right? There's something I want to engage with, and I compare that with kind of so many of the tools in our security tool stack that just they repel you.
Right. I mean, it's just like, and there's small things too, right? Like, for example, Erica, who she designed the entire product, she's like was the first person at Dope actually. Between me and her, we're the first people working on the product. But there's a guy, Parth, who basically leads the front end engineering, right? And he said, Kunal, it's like a magic trick. Everything should happen, and you shouldn't really know what's happening underneath the hood. So, for example, in our UI, you'll click on something, but there's other things happening in the background. That's the way these consumer applications work too. Is that like before you click on messages, for example, it's already loaded the messages. But cybersecurity applications are very basic. They don't think about those things. Instead, they're simply saying, oh, you clicked on messages, now we'll load messages, which means that the end user now has to wait a second or 2 seconds for that page to load.
Boy, I love the analogy of a magic trick. I'm gonna borrow that one.
Dude, Parth the man.
That is fantastic.
His name is Parth Narialwala, aka the Coconut Man in Hindi.
Coconut. Well, one of the things I always say when you talk about cybersecurity, this is like when I'm talking to a board or anybody else is.
Right.
It's a slider. I can make us 100% impenetrable, but we won't be able to do business. Or can have it super easy, laissez-faire, do whatever, and we'll probably get, in trouble. And the key is the slider in that. And part of the calculus of that slider is friction and how difficult it is. And so in your example, if you got to click on your messages and then you got to go load all this stuff and it takes time.
Exactly.
That's introducing friction. Or if there's an extra click or they're not sure exactly how to click on it or what to do. All those things, you need to obsess on those to remove every tap, every mouse click, everything that introduces.
And the load time, right? Like, for example, when you go to Gmail, a lot of people use Gmail out there, right? Like, Gmail actually persistently stores data on your browser so that when you go back, it's not reloading everything from scratch, right? That's how it makes it faster. And we're actually doing the same thing in Dope as well. When you go in and you do things, then it's way more reliable because you can just click and do things very quickly. But like, you're not worried about, if I just want to make one simple change, now I have to save plus push plus commit, which is what you used to have to do in the past. But now if you made an error, let's just say you make a mistake, you change the setting and then you click save, and it's just a second later.
Sure, but that's harder for Google or harder for Dope. Mm-hmm. But it's a delight
for you. Right? Yes, exactly.
And it should all be about delighting me, right? And not making it easier for you. And I apply that philosophy for IT and have for a long time. I want to give user choice. If you want to use Android or iOS, or you want to use Windows or Mac, it doesn't matter to me. Yeah. It's harder for me. It's harder for my IT team to be able to support all that stuff. But it delights the end users, and that's to me what it's all about.
That's a beautiful one, man. I like that one a lot because, see, for me, Dope has always been about passion, right? Like, it's all about being from the Bay Area. Like, we see all these things, and cybersecurity companies generally, like Palo Alto Networks, not based in Palo Alto, right? Like, these types of things, it's really tough, right, for an organization to like have everyone in the company. But at Dope, I mean, maybe it's because we're smaller, but for whatever reason, everyone in the company is really, really, really proud of what we've shipped and what we've built. Even the front end, as I mentioned, right, there's so much intricacy to it. It's not just a matter of cutting up the PSDs or basically the Figma files and then saying, this is how it should look like.
Right.
It's actually about what happens when you click and what happens when you don't click. Like, for example, I'll give you another magic trick. When you hover over one of the menu options, it loads the content underneath the hood. Mm-hmm. So you can actually, before you even click on it, it's already loaded the content. So now when you click on it, it actually instantly loads for you. So that makes a big difference, right?
It makes so much sense. And, if I'm zooming out, I think about the transition from kind of project mindset and project management to product mindset and product management. And it used to be you'd go talk to your user, you send an analyst out to a user and say, what are your requirements, right? And they would basically regurgitate whatever their manual process was, and we'd create that, and it would be a horrible user experience. Nowadays, you have people that understand the technology stack and the capabilities and kind of the art of the possible. Right. And you look at what they're trying to do. What are the business processes that they're trying to accomplish? And then you apply technology to that in a way that delights them.
Yeah.
That really they enjoy using. That doesn't need manuals. That's easy. That's delightful.
Fast. Yeah. Exactly.
All that stuff, right? Remove friction. That's where you get a really happy customer.
I mean, and so much of that mentality, actually, probably the reason why you appreciate it so much is because it kind of stems from entertainment, right? Like, I mean, when you build a movie like a Top Gun 2 or this or all those things, people put a lot of thought into it underneath the hood. And there's all these subliminal things, like how does a Christopher Nolan movie have all these themes? But I really got to ask you, like, what makes entertainment cybersecurity or just CIO nature unique? Like, what makes that unique? What should someone think about if they ever wanted to get into it?
Get into it from an entertainment industry perspective?
No, from the cybersecurity aspect, because it's different than if you're just going after a typical company, right? Like a retail would be different than entertainment. Is there anything fun or exciting you've seen?
Well, what draws me to it is, like I said, I love to kind of my brand is intersection of Hollywood and Silicon Valley, right?
Right.
And I get all of the glamour and fun and newness of entertainment, but with technology that's constantly changing.
Yeah.
And that's what I love, that kind of intersection. But you talked about, kind of Hollywood and Christopher Nolan movie. It's suspension of disbelief. It's the lighting, it's the characters, it's the sound, everything to have that, toil for untold, hours to create this wonderful experience.
Exactly.
For somebody to sit down, turn the lights down, and enjoy this wonderful, 2-hour movie or whatever it is. And so that's just something exciting. And to me, the other thing is that technology disrupts business models. You think back to, Say Napster, when that came out, right? At first, everybody dismissed it, but if you understood the power and where that was going, you could see, holy cow, this is going to like
turn into
either decimate or change the entire music industry.
Totally,
right?
totally.
And it did, and then Steve Jobs with the iPod and iTunes and everything else, and ultimately Spotify resurrected it. Now it's a thriving business, but there was a long time when that was really a challenged space. And then you look at streaming today, and you look at so many, the internet and the creator media, the creator world that's going on right now, and look at somebody like, say, a Mr. Beast or something like that, and the reach and the impact that they would have,
huge.
That now people can go, pretty much anybody can create a podcast, right? There's no rules, there's no gatekeepers, there's nothing, you can go out and do it.
That's what we're doing right here.
That's what we're doing right here, right? And then the success or failure of your content will allow that to either succeed or not, right?
Yeah.
But the barriers to entry via either distribution or legal or other means aren't there, right? And I think that's one of the great things about the internet and its disruptive effect on kind of broad entertainment. During COVID, when that happened, it shut down. People couldn't go to movie theaters, it couldn't go to concerts, it couldn't go to sporting events.
Changed a lot of it, right?
Changed everything. But what it really turbocharged was, kind of these new digital things. Podcasting went crazy.
Podcast, videos, YouTube.
Video, creator, digital media people, gaming, esports, you could just go on. All of these things that just emerged out of that were enabled by technology.
I mean, I'm like, it is pretty fascinating. What was there 1 year ago is different today. I mean, I think like, for me, it's like making sure that we hone in on that, obviously that problem, and then, then you end up being good at it. I have to ask you one thing though. I felt like when we met, like it was kind of like love at first sight with Dope. Like, why did you like it so much?
Well, it was refreshing your product mindset on caring about the user and the user interface. That was probably primarily. And then secondary, it was with the secure web gateway, you can
configure those, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the fly direct and the mindset about not having a central data center or a series of data centers and doing all the processing locally, that really kind of piqued my interest. And I thought, as these things are getting more powerful, these devices, these computers that we carry around that we call phones,
super powerful, yeah.
And laptops and everything else, you were harnessing kind of Moore's law. And so I could sit on my Mac or my PC and actually, do the same thing there better.
Right.
And it removed a lot of the performance hits and other challenges that the kind of existing products had.
I think like I'm super thankful that we get to meet and do everything. And also I want to thank you for, using Dope in general, right? I mean, like it is a big step for a startup to go out there and be out there, but for you to put your faith and come out, chat with me, meet and everything, I appreciate it, man. And soon we're going to get you one of those dope-ass jackets too.
I can't wait for my dope-ass jacket.
But like, we're almost reaching our destination. So any final thoughts, I mean, what would you recommend to people that are trying to be in your position one day?
You got to love what you do. And as you progress higher up the pyramid to be a C-suite, whether it's a CISO or CIO, you really got to focus more on the business side. But I think you can't let go of the technology side. So it's a both and.
Right.
And especially from a CISO perspective, so much of the board discussions are now around cybersecurity, and that's never going to go away. I don't see a point in time where I could answer the board and say, yeah, I've done enough. I'm check. Security's done. It's never, ever going to happen. It's always changing. It's always evolving. And it's also kind of mysterious and hard to articulate and describe.
Right.
And so you really have to learn the language of business and resist all of the acronyms and jargon and
all
technology,
the buzzwords.
Right. And the more you do that and you focus on the business side of things, I think you'll have success.
Yeah, like focusing on like what you do from a passion perspective, making things delightful, really being proud of what you do. I think like those are definitely the secrets to success and being great at what you do. But man, dude, thank you again.
Thank
You're
you.
the man. I'll see you again soon, and hopefully we'll meet again in the next couple of weeks. Yeah.
We definitely will.
Love
the ride.
Yeah, dude. Thanks again.
All right.
All right, that's all done. Look at that.